Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Garrett. Garrett is an interesting guy. He comes in from Des Moines, Iowa, and me and him met through doing the same podcast together last year. We were on Brad's podcast, Sober Motivation. Great podcast, by the way. Definitely check it out. He's an awesome guy with an awesome platform. Garrett's really interesting. You know, he doesn't have this story that's wild of jail and rehab. He's just a regular guy with a regular story, but that's what makes him so relatable. You don't have to have those things happen to realize that your relationship with alcohol has taken a negative turn. He's definitely very honest and open about everything that he's gone through, and he's just a really cool guy. I think you guys are going to love this episode, so let's get into it.
Hey, how are you guys?
I'm so glad that you're here. Me and you know each other through another podcast host, Brad at Sober Motivation. I think you had done his podcast a few weeks before I did mine. Is that right?
I think that sounds right. Yep, I did it. That's my kind of coming out story and telling my story for the first time on his podcast.
It's fun. I actually met a lot of guests that were on his show. We kind of all connected after. He's such a nice guy. If y'all are looking for another sober or mental health podcast, check him out. He has a great platform. He's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, he was the first person I listened to when I kind of started my journey to sobriety. It was typed in sober into Spotify and he popped up.
Yeah, he's just like very genuine. Felt really comfortable talking to him. He gives like golden retriever energy, you know?
Oh yeah.
And
For
he's
sure.
got quite a story. I am going to get him on my show in the next month, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll be excited for that. I like hearing his story. It's pretty wild, but it's awesome to see how far he's came.
Yeah, and he's up in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't have too thick of an accent though.
No.
And where are you coming in from?
I am in West Des Moines, Iowa, so flyover state here. So born and
Okay.
raised in Iowa. So
Okay. I have never been. What are the neighboring states to that? This is awful. I don't know my geography.
we got Nebraska, Missouri, Illinois, and Minnesota.
Okay.
Kind of unique because we don't have a pro team here, like in any capacity. So everyone likes different. Like we have a bunch of Chiefs fans, Bears, Packers, Vikings, that type of stuff. So always kind of interesting around here. But yeah, grew up in Iowa in a small town my whole life, and then moved down to Des Moines, the capital here. So I've been here for the last 15 years.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And the quote for your episode is actually from an Instagram account called Creative Sobriety. Have you ever heard of them before?
I have actually, yeah.
Yeah, they had posted this quote a few years ago, and I've had it saved in my like photo album in my phone for years. And I usually post it every year on my sober date or like National Recovery Day, but it's just such a good one. So the quote goes, "Your life will not be boring if you get sober. It will be limitless." Maybe that's scarier. What does that mean to you?
And that hits home for sure. I mean, that was probably my biggest fear in giving up alcohol was, especially here in Iowa. I mean, there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's not a whole lot to do. Everything's kind of revolved around alcohol. So I remember when I was holding on to it as long as I was thinking, like, what is my life going to look like? And yeah, so like kind of coming full circle and like hearing it that way, it's definitely true that there was a lot of fear and giving it up and kind of the unknown of what it was going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally track with what you're saying. I think I thought that a life in sobriety would be boring, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I think when you're young, alcohol is fun. You're young, you don't know any different, and everything, it's around alcohol, and it makes things fun. Alcohol is fun until it's not, and then when it's not fun, it's really hard to get out of the bad relationship with it.
Yeah, I experienced that the hard way for sure.
Yeah, I feel like also too when I was drinking and things got bad, like my life was in black and white, but in sobriety, it's like in vibrant color, if that makes sense.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, one thing I'm really trying to emphasize now is like just experiencing things I haven't done and just my trips pre giving up alcohol were just all revolved around drinking, and now being able to go into Zion National Park next week and be able to experience that. Sober, going over to Ireland actually in August to do some traveling and just
Wow.
trying to kind of get out and see some things I've missed, over the 30 some years was living, and however half of that was pretty much filled with drinking and those escapades.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up such a good point about sober travel. When you're drinking and you're traveling, a lot of time you have to spend recovering from the hangover, or you don't have the energy to go do all the excursions or see the things. And then also you kind of get tunnel vision and your whole vacation is just about where do I get my next strength rather than experiencing the place that you're at?
Exactly. Yeah, I would stay in bed until mid morning and get up and start at it for the day. There wasn't much sightseeing, as mostly just
Yeah, it's so crazy how it can take over your brain like that. The other thing the quote brings up to me is once you get sober, you can't use alcohol as a crutch anymore, right? So, which is a good thing and a bad thing, but you're like kind of forced to get out of your comfort zone. That first year of sobriety is uncomfortable, and you're given this gift to live up to your full potential. And I think that's what the quote kind of embodies. Like, that's scary, but like, what a gift?
yeah. Yeah, and that uncomfortableness. Actually, in my episode with Brad, he made a good point where he said, I'd rather have that 5 minutes of being uncomfortable in a social situation. A lot of my story with him was kind of talking about socially drinking and trying to hang on to that. That 5 minutes uncomfortable right there is a lot better than 5 days of beating yourself up over a bender and all the trying to repair all the damage you did along the way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Well, I'm really excited to hear your story. So, wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Yeah. So like I said, I grew up in a small town here in Iowa. What I would consider a very normal childhood. Both my parents are still together today. Very active in my life. Pretty involved in athletics growing up, and so really didn't really drink until we graduated high school. And then went to college, and that's where things really kind of ramped up. And like a lot of people probably in their journey, it it was an issue at first, but nothing as it was towards the end. Just the consequences weren't quite there at the beginning. Actually, my first weekend in college, I actually got a drinking underage in a bar ticket. So that was, that's a $150 fine, and there wasn't a whole lot of follow up to that. So got in some trouble in college. Got a DUI. Got a couple along the way too, and so really was kind of raising some red flags with people close to me. Definitely, a lot of it was a struggle with my family. They were, really trying to kind of maybe rein in what I was doing and kind of where my path was going. Ended up dropping out of college after my junior year and opened up a bar and grill, which probably not a great idea at the time, but worked there. Didn't really face too many consequences. Small town, didn't really have to worry about police. I've never been an everyday drinker. It was more of a binge drinker, so it was just my off switch during those binges was just kind of non-existent. Met my now ex-wife when I had that bar and grill. She was a waitress there, and then moved down here to Des Moines, and really kind of just had a roller coaster of experience with alcohol use. There'd be some stretches where it'd be a issue, and there'd be some stretches where I kind of could keep it under wraps. But it was definitely a challenge, something that was always really heavy in my mind, something that really weighed a lot on me. And as we got married, and then as we're trying to go through the process of having children, we really struggled. Ended up having to go through IVF, and ended up having to get an egg donor. And so went through 2 rounds of IVF and ended up having twin boys. So definitely blessed to have 7-year-old twin boys. And while that was going on, probably that's where I really noticed I was leaning on alcohol. And I don't know, looking back, it was so much as like a coping mechanism, or it was just so stressful to me in that situation because there wasn't much I could do, and I didn't really know how to handle it. And so I just kind of used alcohol as an escape. I always tied alcohol and fun kind of went hand in hand. And like you said, alcohol was fun until it wasn't. And so that really kind of got on people's radar. I was going out and not knowing how I got home. I didn't drive usually too often, but there was times I did, and just making really poor decisions, put myself in really dangerous situations, a lot of blacking out. That was kind of my MO there for a long time. My boys were born, and shortly after that, I took some long breaks from drinking. I usually go 2 or 3 months of not touching it, but also not really do anything to work on the problem. I pop into an AA meeting here and there, not seeing, I wouldn't talk to anyone. I kind of just went to get some people off my back more than anything, not something that I really wanted to make any big changes in my life at the time. When they turned, I think it was 1.5, had an incident where I, kind of MIA for 2 or 3 days, got a hotel because I didn't want to come home and see my children see me intoxicated. And that's when things got pretty serious with those around me. Walked into an intervention in my living room, which was not fun, as you can imagine, and really did not want to do inpatient treatment. That was something I had a have a career here. Didn't really want to step away from that, and didn't want people to know I was battling this. So kind of made a deal to do a extensive outpatient program and did that, completed that. And looking back, it was a great program. I learned a lot, but it was also so fresh in my from my last drinking incident where for me I never really had a hard time not drinking the first probably 6 weeks after I would go out and do something dumb or make a fool of myself or whatever it may be, just because the shame and guilt were so heavy then. But over time that wore off, and so I went through the outpatient, and it was a good experience, and I did take it serious, but I wasn't ready to let go yet. Looking back, at the time I thought I was, but I just wasn't. So came back out, ended up maybe getting 3 months under my belt, and I went out and relapsed, and did that for probably the next year and a half or 2 years. And then finally, my last weekend, I went to a football game in West Virginia on a guys trip, and really don't remember much of the weekend at all. Had some incidents before that were pretty scary, and really kind of thought that at the time my wife was gonna leave me if I didn't change. I'm not sure why. I thought it was a good idea. I mean, I put in my head well in advance that I was gonna drink on this trip, and obviously told everyone I wasn't, and went out there and just, yeah, it was a mess. And on that flight home, I'll never forget. It was October 30th, 2021 was my sobriety date, and I just remember praying and thinking, like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I just am at the point where I cannot live like this anymore. I can't. I mean, I was so mentally exhausting to go through that, and like I said, the shame and the guilt were so heavy on me. I'm a people pleaser by nature, so I'm letting people down, and it was really tough. And came back and got in contact with someone I knew that was in AA, and started going to meetings with him, and actually took it serious. Went through the steps, and met people, and really kind of tried to engulf myself in the community. And that's really what hit home for me. I think is I always knew I wasn't alone in it. I'd seen other people that had gone through it and stuff, but just getting in a safe place and talking about it really kind of made a difference. And ended up my sponsor and a couple other people I knew kind of put together like a men's group and met weekly. And that was really just a good place to kind of go through. We read different parts of books and just kind of go through and try to, keep each other accountable and just kind of better ourselves as husbands, men, fathers, whatever it may be. And have a look back. Like I said, that was 2021, and that was the last time I had a drink.
Wow, that's amazing. So coming up on 4 years this year.
Yeah, yep. So it's been a wild ride. I was pretty. I mean, obviously, the people around me knew. The people I was close with knew what I was going through and knew that I quit drinking. And I actually was pretty content just not making it that public. And I remember I was walking the dog, and I was listening to one of Brad's podcasts, and Todd Kinney was on there. His story just resonated so much with me. I just felt a calling after listening to his podcast. Maybe I can share my story and try to help some other people. So I bought his book, read his book, and then connected with Brad and did that. And that's kind of really where things changed a lot for me. That was the first time I'd publicly told anyone, which I was pretty terrified to put that out there, because there's a lot of people that did not know kind of what I'd gone through or what my family had gone through and my friends and all that. So it's been quite the journey for sure.
Yeah, I have some questions. So your job as a, restaurant owner, bar owner, do you still do that? Do you still have that same job?
Nope. So I did that for just about 2 years and got out of that. And now I'm work in talent acquisition here in Des Moines. So I've been doing that and for the same company here for 6 years now.
Well, I was asking because I would imagine that would be kind of hard to go back into that environment and be sober. That's just kind of like the culture of restaurants. And then also just putting
Yeah.
yourself back in those triggering situations. I was curious.
Yeah, I did a 6 month, my longest stint of sobriety before I quit was actually when I had the bar, because that's when my drinking was getting pretty escalated, where I was drinking probably the most often I'd ever drank. So I quit for 6 months, and that was very hard. I mean, I was 24 at the time, I think maybe, and it was just white knuckling my way through that process. Where now, I mean, everyone has different triggers. I mean, like I can go to a bar and don't really have any issues with it. I think a lot of it's helped out with society and where we kind of are with um, people not drinking, and just it's kind of a new normal to um, have. You can go and try and get 5 different options of non-alcoholic beer if you go to a bar now, where 2 years ago they look at you like, what are you talking about if you try to order one type thing. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it would be probably not a good place for me to be right now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting what you're talking about, your little stints that you had, the 3 months, 6 months here, a few months here. I think when you look at that kind of drawn out, that was probably you using willpower to get through them, right?
Yeah.
And willpower
Yeah.
always runs out. To get the radical shift, like the paradigm shift, you have to change your belief system around alcohol. And AA does a great job of that. There's tons of groups you can join, but the structure, discipline, patience, and the reinforcement, like that's where you
Yeah.
get that radical internal shift that gives you long-term sobriety.
Yeah, and that's what, honestly, looking back, I mean, every time I said I was going to quit drinking, which was, I think, 50 times, give or take, I think probably almost every time I meant it at the time when I said it. I don't think I really was saying it to try to get out of the situation, maybe looking back there's sometimes, but it was funny that last time where I just decided to like let it go and just be like, this is not something I can do, and just trying to accept that and working through that. And it was, I mean, the biggest weight off my shoulders I could ever. I mean, it's crazy to think how much time I spent trying to moderate, and rules I put in place along the way. And I'm going to go to this place, so I'm only going to have 3 beers and whatever it may be, and just trying to hold on to it to try to. Because really, all I wanted to do was just drink like everyone else. I wasn't trying to like go and ask for more than that. I just wanted to feel normal in that situation, and that was something I really struggled with until I finally realized it's just time to let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about your relationship. You had mentioned your ex-wife. Did your relationship with alcohol affect your marriage and ultimately cause it to end? Or can you kind of describe that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely was a huge strain in our relationship. Um, Looking back, I don't know how she probably stayed with me during that. We actually got divorced about 2 years ago now. It was after I had gotten sober, but I mean, I think our relationship the whole time was, we were together for 15 years. I'm married for 12, so I think it was kind of a grind the whole time. Kind of happened at the end that weren't related to alcohol. It was pretty obvious to both of us it just wasn't going to work out. But luckily, we co-parent very well. We get along. I talk to her every day about the kids. And I'm in a relationship now where my girlfriend named Megan, actually, she just moved in recently. She's been great in this whole process. She's been very supportive, very good, with my kids, and it's really helped to have some support. I mean, everyone in my life has been supportive of my changes I've made, but yeah, it's been. I'm pretty lucky to have the relationships that I do with my ex, because I know some people that co-parent and it's not that way, and that would be, that's not fair to the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I just want to comment on the fact that you went through the divorce sober. Going through divorce is hard. It's like one of the hardest things you'll ever go through
Mhm.
emotionally, physically. It's a really hard life event. And to go through that sober, did you have any cravings during that? How were you able to maintain your sobriety during that time?
A lot of people around me were very worried I was going to relapse during that time, and rightfully so. Never even thought about it. There's been cravings since I quit drinking. I can think of probably two. Both were after the divorce. I think a lot of for me too was knowing like if I started drinking while I was going through a divorce, that was really going to jeopardize my custody, and we had 50-50 custody, and I didn't want anything less than that. So I think that played a big part in it. But then too, like I realized how much better relationship I had with my children after I quit drinking. I quit drinking when they were 3, and just how much more present I am with them. And then, going through that, we were kind of doing a makeshift 50-50 while the divorce was getting finalized. And just, it was very evident to me that throwing that back into things was just going to start a fire that I wasn't going to be able to put out.
Yeah. Earlier, you had mentioned trying to moderate your drinking. I think that's a very common denominator for people.
Yeah.
And we could do a whole podcast episode on moderation. In my experience of, being in this world of recovery, if you've ever had a bad relationship with alcohol, like quote unquote alcohol use disorder, it's almost impossible to ever moderate. I think if you are a normie and you've never had an issue, moderation is probably just a normal night for you. But the neural pathways in our brain remember, and they always want to take you back to that place. And, AA talks about how alcohol is cunning and baffling. It really is. I loved how you described when you woke up and you were like, I'm never going to drink again. I did that too. And then 8 hours later, I was drinking again. How does that even make sense,
It was, yeah, it's crazy to think how our brain works and how we go to what we know and what the dopamine hits we get along the way. I tried everything. And I think really what's the biggest struggle with me is there was times I could control it. There's times I could go out and have a few beers here and there, and that played more mind games on me probably than anything, that maybe, oh, hey, I got this under control now. And that was only a matter of time before things were going to really get off the rails quick. And so I think that was probably the biggest struggle I faced, really, was trying to moderate it. But I would get, like, I'd be halfway done with the beer and I'd be like thinking like, okay, when am I going to get my next beer? Just like I'd start getting anxiety just thinking about, I'm gonna be out of beer. What's this gonna? What am I gonna do? This is my last one I can have for the night. Can I try to sneak one in? And it just was. I mean, it just completely something I obsessed with the whole time, and it was exhausting for sure.
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying. You'd order one beer and then automatically order a second one, so you had it
Yeah.
coming.
Oh yeah. And I'd order rounds for people, and they like, what are you ordering rounds for? We all full beers, and because I was like, I'm gone because I drink so fast. I didn't want to be like, oh, just order me one. I'm like, oh, I'll just spend all this money at the bar, buy a round
Right.
beer one, just so I can make sure I feel normal in the process.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest hurdles you faced in early sobriety?
I mean, I think for me, it was trying to separate I really wrapped up my identity around kind of being the life of the party, and really trying to separate that I could still go do the things I enjoy and do the things that I find fun and not have to be under a substance to do that. I think that was really something that was tough for me because it was really hard to separate the two. If I'm going to go to a football game, all I've known my whole life is I'm going to drink at a football game. I'm going to tailgate. I'm going to do whatever it may be. And so trying to separate that and trying to be like, what's that going to look like? And ultimately, once you get yourself in that situation, you realize, oh, well, this is not hard. I mean, this is not that bad. Like, this is more fun. I remember the game. I remember everything. I didn't make an ass out of myself. I didn't do anything stupid, and all that. So I think that was probably the biggest battle I had, of just kind of facing that internal battle, because I had so much support externally. Like, there was never, if I would have grabbed a beer at tailgate, someone would have knocked it out of my hand. That's kind of where I was at in that situation. People knew what was going on, but it was just that internal battle that I was facing that was really tough to overcome.
Yeah, like your identity was wrapped up in someone that drinks. Yeah,
Exactly.
I totally understand that. So you had mentioned, boys trips and football games. So how did your relationship with your friends change after that? After you told them I'm not drinking anymore. How did that relationship shift?
That was one of my biggest fears is, I'm gonna lose all my friends and no one's gonna want to hang out with me. I'm gonna be the boring guy. And honestly, it was the exact opposite of that. I could probably count on one hand how many friends I've lost, and I probably would have lost me when I was drinking still. And it was just because life happens. We have kids with people, we got youth sports. It's just life's crazy. But everyone's been super supportive of me. I mean, I have two really good friends that don't drink anymore. One quit right before I did and kind of just did it because he wanted to be healthier. And the other one hasn't drank in over a year, and same thing. He didn't have a problem with it. He just said, I'm putting poison in my body. Why am I doing this? And so, it's only been positive. And people that I was worried that I was gonna like, and he's like, all I did with these people was drink. I think they found out pretty quickly, and I found out like I can be just as fun not drinking. And then it works. Then I got a free DD out of the deal, so that works out. She goes
Yeah.
wherever in town or whatever it may be.
Right.
Yeah, really only positive, which was something I I worried so much about what everyone's going to think about me and what, going to a work happy hour, what's that going to look like? And you realize really quickly, like, people don't care. People don't care what you're drinking and build it up in your head. And there's times you might run into some awkward situations, but really no one cares what you're doing.
Yeah, most people are more focused on what they're doing, but also
Yeah.
I think too if you do get those people that are asking you lots of questions, it's usually because they probably are curious about their own relationship with alcohol,
Hmm.
and I kind of see that as an opportunity to really be like a light and a source of information for them and show them like, well, this is what sobriety can look like. It's not so bad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and um that was probably the biggest surprise when I shared my story with Brad, was just how many people reached out to me and had so many similar stories. And I mean, I met a friend locally who I did not know was my age. He randomly heard me on a podcast, reached out to me on LinkedIn of all places, and said, "Hey, can we grab coffee? I want to learn a little bit more." And he's coming up on a year sober here in the next week, and just like the amount of people that and relationships I've built in the community, and I had parents of people that have struggled with it that reached out to me and asking for advice and stuff, and I just would have never in a million years imagined I'd be in a situation where I could be to not only, you know, take care of myself and get through that side of it, but then also try to help other people as well.
Yeah, I think it's grace, right? All of the shame and stuff that we went through, like it gives us a sense of purpose again. Like all of that
Hmm.
shame that we went through now serves a purpose of helping people. And that is so fulfilling moving forward. So, your decision to talk about it publicly is very brave. It's extremely brave, and you're not only able to hold on to that for yourself, but now you can help other people through that story. And I think that's what connects us as humanity is the suffering and the brokenness and the imperfections, not all of these like fake, filters and reels and all that stuff that we see on social media. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's just, I think a lot of people, everyone gets on and talks about the journey and how great things are, and that it's true. My life is a million times better than it was. But having the ability to lean on others, and hearing stories, and just being able to connect with people that have gone through what you're going through when things are tough, it's just when you can't. I don't think you really appreciate how much that support means to you until you've had someone else reach out to you and ask for it back in return.
yeah, that's a really good point. So, that first year, what strategies, tools did you find most helpful?
I mean, for me, it was definitely surrounding myself in the community locally here in person, whether it be day meetings or doing coffees, lunches, met with my men's group quite a bit, and then just kind of engulfing myself in podcasts, books. I was diagnosed with ADHD and right before COVID. So sometimes reading for me, I can read a chapter and be like, I have no idea what I just read because my mind went somewhere else. So whether it be audiobooks or podcast. I mean, for me, podcasts always really seem to resonate a lot with me. And so for me, it's just keeping it fresh and kind of where I was at. I don't think I was ever going to be one of those guys that would want to do, people say do 90 meetings in 90 days. And, that probably wasn't going to be what was successful for me. But trying to catch 2 or 3 meetings a week around my kid's schedule, every time I go work out or go for a walk or take the dog for a walk, try to listen to a sobriety podcast, really just kind of kept me straight and kept me focused. And I mean, that first year was really a challenge, but that entire first year, I never once had a craving. I had 2 cravings, and they're both very random in the last year and a half. So I mean, I made it the first couple of years without having any cravings at all.
Yeah, what's interesting about your sober day is that you were right before the holidays, right before where everyone upticks their drinking. So, you really kind of
Yeah,
threw yourself in the fire and you got through it.
yeah. And for me, like looking back, I never even thought about that till you just said it. But like most holidays, I didn't drink because that was during football season. I usually would do something dumb during a football game, and so I'd spend the next 2 months. I almost just viewed it as a punishment. I would punish myself and not let myself drink for a couple months to not only get some heat off of me, but then also, try to kind of, wrap things in and make sure that's not going to happen again. Because I mean, there's no worse feeling in the world than waking up and not knowing what you did and how you got home and what you might have said. And for me, where's my phone at? I mean, I would lose things. Just make. I'm in my 30s, just making a complete ass out of myself. And Des Moines might be the biggest city in Iowa, but it's not that big a city. So you see a lot of people, same people. So like, oh, just was not a fun situation to go through.
Yeah. You had mentioned you're a dad to twins. I also have twins myself, and that you had gone through infertility. That's tough. I mean, that's being a twin parent is really tough, I can say from experience, but going through infertility is really tough as well. You definitely had some, big challenges. So, how has your life been different, being a parent in recovery?
I mean, I think I've really embraced more trying to understand why my kids act the way they do, and instead of just a lot of times I try to take the things I've learned from recovery or things I've learned from other people and try to incorporate that in my kids' life, just because they're 7-year-old boys and they are lively and they don't listen very well and they they make things a challenge a lot of times. It's super fun and everything, but I think a lot of it is just trying to um, have the patience to kind of go through what they're experiencing in real time and try to incorporate that any way I can, and just being able to not them not have to ever see me drink and not have that be part of their life. My dad quit drinking like a year before I was born. My brother hasn't drank in um, over 3 years. Just trying to stop that generational thing. It's really important to me. It's really important that when they get old enough that I can share kind of what I went through, just because that's a huge fear of mine is that odds are probably not in my favor that one of those two will probably face some challenges when it comes to that, just statistically. Kind of try to get ahead of that when I can.
Yeah, I think doing what you're doing, is so important. It's so interesting that your actions can affect generations to come. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
a positive
hmm
way or a negative way. And you choosing to stop your relationship with alcohol and then be public about it and be open and honest with your children. I mean, that's a positive generational change right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like I've been meaning to ask my dad about it sometime. He quit drinking and obviously me and my brother both really struggled with it. It was very hard on him to watch us go through it. So I kind of asked if there's anything he'd do different or anything, kind of get some advice there because he did everything he could to stop it, and for whatever reason, we didn't listen or it didn't take for us. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can end it now.
My twins were also 3 when I got sober. So it's interesting. They don't remember mommy drinking at all. My oldest one does, but that's such a good age if you're going to quit because they really don't retain memories, right? So do your kids have
Yeah.
any memories of you drinking at all?
There's one time where I was trying to put a shoe on and couldn't, and they talked about it like daddy was sick or daddy couldn't put a shoe on, and it was it was talked about a lot more like right after it happened. There was a time where I passed out an Uber and couldn't get out, and they called it welfare check to make sure I was okay. And while this was happening, they got a little teddy bear from the EMT. Each gave him one. So that was kind of a talking point for a little while. Oh, remember when dad was sick, but it hasn't been discussed anymore than that.
Yeah. Do they bring it up at all? Like if you're at a party with them, like a social gathering with family, friends, do they ever mention anything? Daddy doesn't drink, anything like that?
No, they haven't. I'm kind of surprised because they will say about anything else. It seems like, but they haven't brought it up. We're around it quite a bit, but it's just something that I think they don't even come
They're
through that.
still quite young,
Yeah.
7. Yeah. That's great though that you have such an open dialogue with them about it. What
Yeah,
do you
I mean between that and then IVF, I have definitely some patients to have with them when they get a little bit older.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, kind of going back to the quote that we started the episode with, but what are some common misconceptions about sobriety that you had that you found out were not actually true?
I mean, the biggest one is my life is going to suck more or less. I'm just going to sit at home. I'm going to have no friends. I'm not going to be fun. Everyone's going to think I'm this loser. I always worried that people would think, oh, he must not have enough willpower. He's not strong enough to be able to control his alcohol. And obviously, that could be more farther from the truth. I mean, I've had more fun in the last 3.5 years than I could have ever imagined. And just the things I've been able to do and just putting myself in situations to you know, grow and learn and, things I would have never done before. So I think that was probably the biggest one. I knew there was going to be positives. Clearly, it was going to help my relationships. People were going to be proud of me that were close to me, but I really was concerned what other people were going to think of me. I think the biggest thing I noticed is just kind of my mentality. How I didn't realize how much it was going to shift. Like I really always kind of had the attitude, like maybe not so much like poor me or like a pity party, but like why can't I drink like anyone else? Why is this happening to me? When all these people have their lives figured out, and then really just kind of stepping back and really just have spent the last 3.5 years just focusing on gratitude and what that means to me. And, started every day looking at a gratitude list I put together when I was, 6 days into sobriety, and just kind of focus on that. And that's really shifted my whole mindset. Just be thankful for what I do have and not looking at what I don't have or what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, mindset is everything. Have you heard of the pink elephant theory?
I have not.
So basically, the word pink elephant, I want you to think of a pink elephant.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so you see one, right? It's like how the whole concept is how powerful our minds can be. Like automatically, you went from thinking about what we were just talking about to a pink elephant, and that's kind of like what gratitude does. It's the filter that we are able to put in our lives, and how much more magical your life is when you kind of look at it through the filter of gratitude and being thankful for things in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of been, that I think really shifted my life in general when I shifted my thought process into focusing on gratitude and what I do have versus what I don't. And I think just it's easy to get caught up in what you don't have in today's world and society and kind of what social media and what everyone's kind of doing out there. And so I think really just kind of trying to focus on the positives in your life can really make a huge impact in kind of your day to day and how you view things.
Yeah. You had mentioned, AA was a big part of your journey. Did you do the 12 steps and did you get a sponsor?
So I got a sponsor, ended up getting through step 5 and kind of have put a pause on it. Life has got kind of busy. Really wasn't dove deep in it from the beginning. And then once we got step 5, that's kind of when we branched off and kind of created our own little men's group where we would read different excerpts from different books and kind of try to talk about it, kind of try to focus a little bit more on what was going on in our life. I still go to meetings. There's a really good meeting locally here on Saturday mornings I try to catch if I don't have kids sports or whatnot. And then there's some good ones in the evenings I like to go. I think the biggest thing I always tell myself about AA is, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for AA. But I've never went into an AA meeting and left not happy I went. I've been to bad AA meetings. I've been to AA meetings where people were drunk. I've been to AA meetings where the one guy talked the entire time. I've been to meetings that weren't great, but every time I go, I'm able to pull something from that, or just it makes my sobriety stronger. So it's something that I really try to keep close to me. My grandpa who passed away, he was very involved in AA, and I don't know why, but he had saved a 7-year chip for me, and he had probably 40 some years of sobriety when he passed. So I have that in my nightstand. So I'm excited for the day I get 7 years to be able to get a matching one with him. But yeah, it's definitely a great program for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you ever take on a sponsee, or in this group that you've created now, how do you give back to the newcomers?
Yeah, so I have not, and I haven't gone through the full steps yet. So a lot of it for me is I've just had people reach out to me. People I've known for 30 years will reach out to me and say, hey, I'm really struggling. People I've never met, will reach out to me on Instagram and, just want to connect and ask some questions. So, I try to help out as much as I can because that only makes it my sobriety better. But anytime you can give back, you mentioned how rewarding that is. And doing a podcast like this is incredible. And, people you're helping out. And so I just try to give back any opportunity I can.
Yeah. One of my first guest appearances on a podcast, it might have been Brad's. I'm not sure which one, but I had someone reach out to me on my Instagram. They were on a train in London and they were listening to my episode. And I was just like, this is so cool. Like he was saying how it had helped him and how he had found strength in my story. And I was like, this is the coolest moment of my life. Being able to help this man in another country across the pond. That connections that we make are so powerful.
Yeah, that's the thing I tell people. Like, if you can have a chance to share your story, you have no idea how many people you can help. I've probably had at least 200 people reach out to me just after my podcast with Brad, and stay in touch with a lot of them, and have some people that I knew locally that did not know what I was going through, that I've been friends with for 20 some years. Now meet with them and talk to them regularly, try to grab lunch with them and check in on how things are going, and try to walk them through it, because it's not an easy journey to go through, especially by yourself.
I think that's ultimately what keeps people sober in the long term, is connecting, is the community, that aspect of it all.
Yeah, there's a reason there's guys that are 40 years sober still going to meetings. It's just it's definitely a community that it's powerful. There's really no other way to put it until you've been in one of those rooms or you've been talking to someone that's going through it, because you feel so alone going through it. In my story, is not that unique, but it felt unique because when I thought of an alcoholic, I thought of someone that was drinking all day, every day, didn't have a job, and whatever that may look. From the outside looking in, like I had a pretty good life. I'm living in the suburbs, had two beautiful kids. My ex-wife's a professor, so it's like we had a pretty good thing figured out. It looked like them, but people didn't know what we were going through and what I was going through. And yeah, just being able to be around, surround yourself with other people that kind of understand that and try to navigate through those rough waters. It's definitely important.
Yeah, alcohol does not discriminate. I don't know why we have the vision as a society that it's the homeless man under a bridge with a brown
Oh
paper
yeah.
bag, because it's not. It's our doctors, it's our lawyers, it's our teachers, it's our nurses. It's everywhere. It can affect anyone at any profession, any social status. And people like you, coming out and talking about it lets other people know that they don't have to hide in the shadows anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the reason I want to share my story, just to I felt that way. I felt alone, and then I mentioned Todd before. Todd was 2 hours away from me, and lawyer, seems to have everything, a perfect life. Golf at the country club on the weekends, everything's perfect. And then while I listen to him tell a story, and it's very similar to mine. It's like, okay, now I'm starting to realize that there's hope on the other side of this. If other people can do it, then I can do it.
Hope. I love that word. What are your plans moving forward in recovery, in being a twin dad, in your job? What are your plans?
Yeah, I mean, recovery first. I try to catch as many, whether it be online meetings or in-person meetings, and just trying to stay connected with people that have reached out to me or that I've leaned on, and just really need to keep that that's an important part of my life, because I know as soon as I kind of let that slide, that's a pretty slippery slope. Twin dad life. I mean, we're in soccer and baseball seasons, trying to get through that and trying to um, keep them alive through the summer and make sure and try to spend some quality time with them. I mean, I think that's one thing I noticed for sure, is that I'm a lot more active and present with them when I do have them, since I only have them 50% of the time. Really just try to be the best dad I can be and try to um, raise them to be good men. And that's really kind of a focus for me there. I work for an aerospace company now, so it's been interesting. But all since COVID's happened, there's been a lot of turnover where I'm at. Luckily, I still have survived that. So just kind of trying to keep my head down, focus on work, and provide for my family and see where things go.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. You're just a regular guy, you know what I mean? And that your story is where people connect, because you don't have this like wild, crazy things that happen. You're just a normal guy, and this is what happened. And that's how most people are. And your
Yeah.
story is so relatable on so many levels.
Yeah, and I there was times I wish I had a wild story, because I was like, oh, this would be so much easier to quit if I just had like some huge thing happen instead of just these, they weren't little, but kind of smaller incidents along the way, and then filtered in between times where it wasn't an issue or where I was able to not drink for periods of time. And so, yeah, so it's been, I think it's an important story to share, just to because I know there's other people out there that are similar to me, and make sure that they don't feel alone in the.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. We have made it
Yeah.
to the lightning round of our episode.
Oh.
So I ask the same 5 questions to every guest that comes on. Season 2, we'll have different questions, but season 1 are these questions. So the first question is, you're given 3 options. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
I would not bungee jump for sure, because I don't think that feeling of like when you go like on a roller coaster and your stomach drops, like I'm not, that's not for me
Not into
at
that.
all.
Okay.
Not into that. I think I would shark dive, I think, but I think I'd go skydiving. I've actually always wanted to do that. I think that'd be fun.
Okay, we'll add it to your bucket list. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Such a good song. I love that song. I don't know if you watched Glee. Did you ever watch the show Glee?
I did not. I did not.
They did a really good remake of that song, but Journey does pretty good too.
All
right,
I was gonna say Regulators. I was gonna say Regulators by Warren G, but now that I thought of it, Don't Stop Believing.
That one's actually really funny though.
Yeah.
Number 3, what's your favorite Disney movie?
I'm gonna go Zootopia.
Oh, so good.
For such underrated. I was gonna say Toy Story, but I think Zootopia, such an underrated movie.
It's so good.
100 times with my kids. So
I learned what an actuary is in that movie. That's what she wants to be when she grows up. I was like, what is an actuary? Has to do with taxes.
Yep.
All right. Number 4, what is something you're obsessed with?
I would say right now it would be trying to be the best parent I can be. And I don't mean that to be like, oh, I'm trying to be like super dad. More so, I feel like a lot of youth, and especially mine, a lot of things are kind of handed to them or given to them, and trying to navigate those waters of putting them in situations to make themselves ready for what's going to come. Really how to punish them, how to discipline them, how to love them the right way. And just there's my kids have obviously went through a divorce, at a young age, and just trying to make sure that they're set up the best way for life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good thing to be obsessed with. And the last question, number 5, what does freedom mean to you?
For me, I would say mental clarity. I mean, the thoughts and everything that consumed my life for so long, and just letting that go and not thinking about when am I going to get my next beer, or what's it going to look like, how am I going to go to this party and make sure I can get a good buzz before I go, or whatever that may be, and just be able to just live in the moment, not have those negative, clouded thoughts consume me. I would say that's freedom to me.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Your story is going to help so many people. And I really appreciate you being open and honest and vulnerable and honestly courageous to share your side of the story and everything that's happened to you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love the pod, and I'm excited to hear more stories coming down the line.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.